This is Anne Hathaway's ugliest movie role to date. Today to introduce you is this year out of the fairy tale film. It completely subverted Anne Hathaway's image and was named the witch who could scare children the most. The story takes place on a bleak winter night. The boy's parents were tragically killed in a car accident and he has to live with his grandmother. In order to let the boy out of the shadow of loss, the grandmother was attentive to accompany him and gave him a pet mouse. The day the grandchildren went to the grocery store to purchase, the boy bumped into a woman with a strange snake wrapped around her arm and dressed strangely by the shelves. The woman eerily asked the children if they wanted a candy.
Eli, sweet. She is dead. Well, sweet.
The little boy knew she was not normal and turned his head and ran. At night, he told his grandmother about this, and he didn't expect her to be horrified. After asking about the woman's features, the boy was told that this was no ordinary person. This is the scary witch who specializes in scourging children, followed by a story about a past incident more than a decade ago. At that time, Grandma was still a little girl. One day on her way home with her best friend, Grandma had hit a similar woman and watched her give the candy to her best friend. Then the corners of the woman's mouth split to her ears, revealing an extremely creepy smile.
She took candy from a stranger.
Little did she know that the next morning, she witnessed at the door, her best friend turned into a chicken. This incident also became a shadow of her life, has been buried in the heart. I didn't expect that now her grandson was targeted by the witch again. She only knows a few herbal healing techniques, but she can't deal with witches. She thought left and right to pack her bags overnight and prepare to go to a luxury hotel. On the way to the refuge, she followed her grandson and talked about witches as a group of ancient and evil creatures who share the same characteristics. They are both rabbits with sharp teeth and claws, and the corners of their mouths can be split right up to their ears. They have to wear wigs, hats and gloves to hide their identity. The smell of innocence on a child is an intolerable stench to a witch. So they will find ways to turn their children into all kinds of animals. Witches exist all over the world, and they get together from time to time to have a party and receive new tasks from the big bosses. Arriving at the hotel for a smooth check-in, room 766, the grandchildren just got on the elevator when a group of women walked in. The witches all wore hats and gloves, and although they wore exaggeratedly heavy makeup, it was hard to hide the cracks at the corners of their mouths. It is not a gathering of enemies. It seems that this witch has also come here for group building. The next day the boy took the mice to hang out in the hotel and met the rich kid, Fatty. He chatted for a few minutes and then just came into the conference room. It didn't take long for the group of witches to come in as a group under the leadership of the hotel manager, and it looked like they were ready to meet here. The little boy, afraid of being scolded by adults, rushed to hide on this side of the podium. Just after sending the manager away, the witches removed their disguises, and sure enough, all of them were bald men with sharp teeth and swords on the top of their heads. The boy hiding below was so frightened that the atmosphere did not dare to come out. Not long after the big boss sent a message, this time the task is to destroy all the children. For this reason she developed a potion that can turn children into mice, and intends to give away all her savings and go around the world to open candy stores. As long as the witch dropped the potion into the candy, it was easy to coax children. In order to verify the effectiveness of the drug, the big boss gave Fatty a drug candy in the morning and made an appointment with him to come back to the conference room. Suddenly her nose shrugged as if she smelled children and jerked off the podium, but found nothing. It turned out that the boy had long since taken advantage of their inattention to drill into the ventilation. It just so happens that at this time Fatty came in, and suddenly his body shook violently, followed by a purple smoke. A few moments later it did turn into a fat little mouse. This time the whole audience of witches exploded with excitement and wanted to stomp. The boy hid in the ventilation duct is dry, but he did not expect to have been hidden in the pocket of the mouse, suddenly opened his mouth to speak, scurrying out to save the little fat back. It turns out that the mouse was once also a girl, believed in the witch, but also a victim. Previously, he was afraid to speak for fear of scaring others. But after saving Fatty on this side, the boy's location will also be exposed. The witch dragged him out. A few drops of the potion went down, crackling for a while. The boy also turned into a mouse. Just when the big witch was about to lay her hands on her, the resourceful mouse rushed out and bit her finger, taking the boy to escape into the ventilation duct. The three mice fled for their lives and crawled to their grandmother's room, telling the truth about what had happened. The problem now is how to get the three little guys to change back. The boy remembered what the big witch had said in the conference. He lives in room 666, the symbolic symbol of the devil, Satan. The potion and the money are hidden in the room, which also happens to be just downstairs from Grandma's room. Just slip into the room and steal a bottle of potion when the big witch isn't looking, then let Grandma work on the antidote. When he said he would do it, the boy climbed on his grandmother's woolen socks and went downstairs while the big witch went out for tea. The boy jumped up and down in the house, tossing and turning to finally get the potion. But he didn't expect the big witch's pet cat couldn't enter the hotel's restaurant and turn back. The boy was frightened and rushed to the balcony when she wasn't looking. They get the potion immediately began to make the antidote, but the power of the great witch is too strong. Grandmothers simply cannot solve the three mice decided that since they could not change back to human, how to stop the group of witches to harm others. They felt that the stolen medicine could not be wasted, so they simply added some medicine to the witch's dinner as well. The boy slipped through the ventilation duct to the kitchen with the bottle of medicine on his back and poured it all into the witch's pea soup when the cook wasn't looking. In the evening the witches were unaware and ate as usual. Grandma hid away, wanting to see if the drugs worked on them. Unexpectedly, the grandmother's eyes happened to meet with the big witch, and at that moment she remembered that this is not the little girl who escaped from her own hands back then. The big witch immediately rushed over and bent down to confront the grandmother. A few little ones took the opportunity to steal the table, made a strange noise and ascended to heaven, turning into a disgusting rat. Grandma and the children took advantage of the chaos to sneak into the witch's room to see if they could find anything else. The big witch surprisingly sneaked in with them. It turns out that during the meal the grand witch did not drink the soup at all. Seeing the situation is not good, several small mice immediately act. They pushed the mousetrap under the big witch's feet and clamped her toes, and the boy popped up with the help of another mousetrap and poured a whole bottle of potion into her mouth. The big witch instantly turned into an ugly fat monster mouse, chased a few small mice and fought with them. But in no time, the strange mouse was covered by the grandmother with a glass. Eventually a group of people came and swept up the big witch's money and potions, releasing his pet cat in the process. In less than a few moments the room was left with a miserable, shrill scream.
Hades! Hades, precious! Remember who feeds you! No, don't think about food!
Since then the three little ones have been living with their grandmother. Although they were not able to change back, but they live happily with the rich property of the Great Witch. They also went on a tour around the country to do activities, distributing medicine water to children everywhere to help them destroy the remaining witches.
Let's get out there and give those witches a taste of their own medicine!
And that's where the story ends. The film is adapted from the novel of the same name directed by Robert Zemeckis. The name may be a little vague to you, but to talk about his other two directed works, Forrest Gump and Back to the Future, then you certainly remember. This plus Anne Hathaway, as well as with Mercury Story, won 2 Oscar nominations for Best Supporting Actress. Octavia Spencer joined. This fairy tale film team is not some luxury. The story of The Witch was brought to the big screen back in 1990. The main plot of the two versions of the movie is roughly the same. It is worth mentioning that the actor who made a guest appearance as the hotel manager that year is the Mr. Bean that we know so well. In addition, in the new version of the ending of the children did not turn back into people, which is consistent with the plot of the novel. And in the old version there was a kind witch who did not drink the potion. After the big witch was solved, sneaked away to the grandmother's house and turned the children back. This kind of good has a good reward and evil has a happy ending, in fact, is also more suitable for building children's values.